Good morning, Year 6, and welcome to our fourth Jigsaw lesson of this term. And this week, we are going to start by celebrating people who have a positive attitude. And I've got some people here who I think have a very positive attitude, and I wondered if you would know who they are. Do you recognize this girl here? She's often on CBBC. She's made documentaries and she's a presenter. Do you know her name? That's right. She's Nikki Lilly, and always seems to have a positive attitude and a smile on her face despite her obvious disabilities and having to have had many operations on her face, and obviously suffer with people looking at her in a funny way. I think it's possibly slightly easier for her now. She's a famous face, but still people, I'm sure, stop and stare at her, and yet she always seems to have a really positive attitude to everything she does. Who's this person? You might have seen him around Plymouth from time to time. He's a former Royal Marine, and his name is, do you know? Mark Ormrod. And Mark was the first British serviceman to lose 3 limbs, his arm and both legs, in the war in Afghanistan, and he survived. And not only survived, but as you can see here, absolutely thrived, and he won gold medals at the Invictus Games, and has been a real inspiration for many people who perhaps are having a bad day or perhaps have had injuries and are slow to recover. And he just shows what is possible if you have a really positive mental outlook. And this gentleman, do you know who this is? This is a sad story in some ways. This man died this week, but his story is such a happy, positive story, and he had such a fantastic attitude and positive attitude. His name is Captain Sir Tom Moore, and he lived to just over 100 years old. Incredible, 100 years old. And last year he raised an awful lot of money for charity for the NHS during lockdown. But we'll talk a little bit more about him later on. So there's 3 people who I could think of very quickly who always seem to have a positive attitude. And to be honest, I'm sure they don't always have a positive attitude. I'm sure there are times when they're sad or times when they felt low, but they always seem to be able to turn that around and either put on a brave face or inspire others with their positive attitude. For Sir Tom, for Captain Sir Tom, his popular phrase was "tomorrow will be a better day." And of course, it doesn't necessarily mean literally tomorrow, but at some point in the future, we're going to be pretty much back to normal, and we'll be able to see and play with our friends and come back to school and go back to work as normal at some point in the future. Tomorrow will be a brighter day. What a great positive attitude he had right up until the end. So now it's time for Calm Me Time. As always in these sessions, I'm going to play a note on my guitar, and we're just going to put our feet flat on the floor, if we can, if we're in a position to do so. Relax, but sit with our shoulders relaxed, our hands in our laps, either closing our eyes or looking at something neutral, something that won't be a distraction for us. Take this opportunity. It might be the only opportunity of the week that you can really calm down and sit silently and practice your breathing and your mindfulness. Let's try it now. Listen for the note. And as the note fades away, we focus on our breathing. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. Breathing in and breathing out. And as we keep slowly breathing in and breathing out, we try to focus on that breathing. We don't think about anything else but our breathing. If other distractions come into your mind, just acknowledge they're there and then think about your breathing, and they'll go away again. Breathing in and breathing out. Can you feel what's happening to your body as you breathe in? Perhaps your chest and shoulders rise. Maybe your tummy pushes out a bit. And you breathe back out. And the opposite happens. Breathing in and breathing out. Just focusing on your breathing. We're going to listen for the note one more time. And when we can't hear the note anymore, we'll carry on with our jigsaw lesson. Good. And now on with the rest of our lesson. Did you notice I played a different note there than the first one? It was a lower note, but we still heard it ring till the end. And just remind yourselves from time to time, you could do that every day if you wanted, especially on school days. If you're getting a bit stressed, if you think you've had enough of doing schoolwork and you've still got 2 more lessons to do, you could just take just a couple of minutes and think, calm me time. Just sit quietly, close your eyes and breathe. Okay, on with today's lesson. What's happening here? You know what this activity is? Can you remember what it's called? That's right. It's Red Nose Day or Comic Relief. Oh, that's a funny way of spelling comic relief, isn't it? Comic Relief. And Comic Relief happens every year. I'm not sure about 2020. I think because of COVID, there were problems with Comic Relief. But certainly it's happened every year since, I think, the 1980s, raising money for people all around the world. And just in 2019 alone, it raised £65.5 million. A really massive, positive charity event. What about this one? The clue's on the shirts, actually. That's right, Sports Relief. Sports Relief is a day a bit like Comic Relief. Comic Relief uses comedy to inspire people to give money and to donate and to do charitable events. And Sport Relief does the same thing, but instead of comedy, it does it with sport. And I think I'm right in saying it largely focuses on charities within this country rather than charities all around the world. But I may be wrong on that. But I think Comic Relief is charities around the world, and Sports Relief tends to be people in need in this country. But I'm sure you'll tell me if I'm wrong. Well, Sports Relief this year, or last year, should I say, in 2020, the last Sports Relief raised £40 million for lots of different charities. It's not just one charity, raised lots of money for lots of different charities, people in need all around the country. And let's take another look in more detail about why Captain Sir Tom Moore became famous. Maybe you've seen the news this week where it's talking about the fact that he died. Maybe you saw the news that he had a song get to #1 in the pop charts. Maybe you saw his 100th birthday celebrations with Spitfires flying past over the top of his house. But maybe you didn't know what it was he was famous for. He's not famous for being a captain or for being an ex-soldier, even though he did serve in World War II all the way back 80 odd years ago. He did serve in World War II, but that's not what he's famous for. On the 6th of April 2020, at the age of 99, Captain Moore began to walk the lengths of his garden in aid of NHS charities together, with the goal of raising £1,000 by his 100th birthday. That's what he wanted to raise, £1,000 by his 100th birthday. In the 24-day course of his fundraising, he made many media appearances. That means he was on television and the radio and in the newspapers, and he became a popular household name in the UK, earning a number of accolades, that's tributes, and attracting over 1.5 million individual donations. In recognition of his efforts, he received the BBC Sports Personality of the Year Helen Rollarson's Award at the 2020 ceremony. He performed in a cover version of the song You'll Never Walk Alone, sung by Michael Bull, with the proceeds going to the same charity. And the single topped the UK music charts, making him the oldest person to achieve a UK #1 in history. On the morning of Captain Moore's 100th birthday, the total raised by his walk passed £30 million. He wanted to raise £1,000, and it passed £30 million by the time he became up 100. And by the time the campaign closed at the end of that day, had increased to over 32.79 million, worth almost 39 million with expected tax rebates. His birthday was marked in a number of ways, including a flypast by the Royal Air Force and the British Army. He received over 150,000 birthday cards and was appointed as Honorary Colonel of the Army Foundation College. On the 17th of July 2020, he was personally knighted by the Queen at Windsor Castle. That means he went from being Captain Moore to Captain Sir Tom Moore. And he died on the 2nd of February 2021. So he died on Tuesday at Bedford Hospital, where he was taken after being treated for pneumonia and then testing positive for COVID-19. So Captain Sir Tom Moore demonstrated that you do not need to be a massive national event to raise considerable amounts of money or to inspire millions of people to do something special. He wasn't comic relief, he wasn't famous comedian, he wasn't a great sportsman, a recognizable face. He was just an old man trying to walk 100 laps of his garden to raise £1,000. And the result was he raised nearly £90 million in just about a month. Isn't that incredible? Now time for your task. What I'd like you to do, either as individuals or perhaps have a chat with people in your family, or if you're in school, you can do it as a group, is to think of and plan a charity event that could raise money for your chosen charity. So choose a charity you'd like to raise money for and see if you can come up with an idea and a plan of a charity event. I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm not saying it's going to be possible to do, but the idea would be for you to plan it. And maybe someday in the future, we could, or you could do it. You might do it in your village or in your town or at school or at your Cubs or Scouts or whatever club sometime in the future. But for now, it's just for fun for you to come up with a plan to see how you could raise money for a charity that you choose. It could be a sponsored task, a sponsored run, a sponsored walk, sponsored swim. It could be an event like a bake sale. Think of something original if you can, but manageable. So something that you could really do, not do a sponsored fly to the moon, because we couldn't really do that. Given the short space of time that you've got to plan here, perhaps you could put your charity plan into action at some point in the future when we're all back in school or all back together. So have a think, come up with a plan, think of a charity you'd like to raise money for, either in the UK or somewhere around the world, and see if you could think of what you would like to do or what you would be able to do, either by yourself or with your family or with your friends, to raise money for a charity, whatever charity that would be. When you've done that and you've planned it and you've chosen it, if you're in class, and I've prepared this Smartboard for the children who are in class, I'd say, would anyone like to share their charity plan? What you could do, you could write it, and if you're going to write it down, feel free to write it in your topic book or on a piece of paper. Take a photograph of that plan and send it to your teacher. Or you could do a poster to advertise your event. You could make up a date if you like. You could say that we're going to have it on Saturday, the 6th of February, even though you're not having it on that date. But if you want to make a poster for your charity event, then you could do that. Or you could even film yourself as if you were in school, standing up and telling me about your charity plan. You could video it. You could even, and I know some of you enjoyed doing this once already this week, you could do it as if it was a news report and you're being interviewed. So maybe get a brother or a sister or a parent to interview you as if you're on Spotlight, saying, I understand you're going to raise money this weekend, and you can explain what your charity event is. So however you'd like to do it and present it is entirely up to you. You can video it, you can make a poster, or you can simply write it down in your topic book or on a piece of paper. But share your plan and make it a good plan. See what you can come up with. See how individual you can be, and see if you can imagine how wonderful it would be to make a small thing like a small child into a point, raising millions of pounds for a worthy charity. I hope you enjoyed today's task and have a lovely weekend. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye for now.